Hello and welcome to the Black Parade. Welcome to Shuffling Notes, where we discuss all things music. I'm your co-host Prankit.
And I'm your co-host Razi.
And today we will be discussing an album by the band called My Chemical Romance. So this band, I don't know how familiar you are with them, Razi. I think you might have just heard some of their songs.
Yeah, I have.
Have you heard much of them?
Not much of them. Probably 2 songs from this album.
Like, you mean prior to
Yeah,
you listening for this video? Yeah.
Yeah,
I just heard 2 songs
that.
for today.
No, but I never knew the names. I
Yeah.
never knew they were by My Chemical Romance. I had just heard them.
I see. Yeah.
Probably with you
So-
and a few other places.
Yeah, I remember they were very popular in the UK, especially around when this album came out, probably before as well. And so, just starting off, right, this band was formed by the frontman Gerard Way. This was after the September 11 attacks. I think he felt quite affected by them, and he said that he always wanted to do music, as in secretly he always wanted to do music. And I think the September 11 attacks sort of affected him in a way that he just thought he needs to go out there and do this. So he formed the band with the drummer Matt at the time. Interestingly, Gerard Way, he's also the creator of, I think you must have heard of this, the Umbrella Academy comics for the Dark Horse. Yeah, Dark Horse comics. He also wrote that comic book. So he's quite a creative. And he's got a very particular sort of point of view about things. And this album, The Black Parade, is their 3rd studio album, which came out in 2006. So this album itself, it's been described as a rock opera, in a sense, about a patient's journey, through going through cancer. And there's a lot of parallels people have made of because there's no exact meaning of no one's actually laid out what all the songs mean in that larger story officially. It's all very much like the fans piecing it together in the sense of this is what this is about. This is the point, And there's some interviews from the band members. Exactly. Just shuffling notes on a large scale. But, I think for me, at least, the album, or for today, for the purpose of discussing it today, I'll try not to stick to that rock opera storyline too much. Because I think some of the songs have more to say than just that patient's journey. It's called The Patient in that story. So, I mean, we might make references to it, I might allude to it, but I'd like to analyze the songs as they are and what they may be about. The name My Chemical Romance, in case you're wondering, it comes off a book called Ecstasy, 3 Tales of Chemical Romance. It's just something that the bass guitarist, he used to work at a Barnes and Nobles. He saw this book and that name caught his eye, and so they went with the name My Chemical Romance. Just interestingly. And part of this album, the Black Parade, it is a dark album. There might be some songs in there that might lean positive, but overall,
Talking about it being a dark album, it starts with The End. Which
Exactly.
I would say that's one of my favorite titles of a song, which
The End.
we'll get to.
but it's the end, full stop. If on the thing, right?
That too.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason the song is like this. So part of the song, I know that some of the tracks they sampled on a tour bus while they were on a tour bus, and they had some recording equipment. But a large part of this album is written while they were staying in this really infamous haunted house known as Paramore, and their experiences they've described doors opening, shutting, and nightmares and all types of things. They have influenced some of the tracks. I'll get to it when we get to the track. But they wrote it in this haunted house. There's been a lot of stories connected to the Black Parade that it's cursed. Some of the band members, they got quite injured recording one of the music videos. I think it was the famous Last Words music video. And at some point the band had decided this would be their last album in a sense. And it started almost turning out like that. But then they did a concert called "The Black Parade is Dead" in Mexico City, and they officially like ended because they had formed this alter ego called the Black Parade. So when they used to perform, they used to dress up as the Black Parade and enact the whole thing, and it was quite crazy. And then they officially killed those people in this concert. The Black Parade is Dead. So there's a lot of sort of like occultish like overtones in terms of the.
Sounds. I mean, the way I did read. I never understood because I didn't go deep into it, but I did read people writing about or personifying Black Parade in a way. So I mean, I guess that makes sense, and that's actually very interesting. Like carrying a theater kind of production to a music album to a stage.
I mean Gerard Way is quite creative, but all the band members as well, they're really into it. I don't know if you've seen any of the music videos, but they always go all out. And I think it's Famous Last Words, the one where they got injured, but if you watch the music video as well, they're just like completely out of it. There's like the part of it is like you can see like the guy like just screaming in pain, and apparently that was like real pain. And there's like a drummer playing with like fire around him, and apparently he was like actually burning while playing the drums where he kept going. So there's like a lot of craziness surrounding it, as you'd imagine, like from the songs. But I suppose like so I suppose let's just jump into it, right, with the tracks. So the first track, as you said, is called The End, full stop. And it really begins with like that, that machine beeping, and then you've got like that guitar and piano. And I think musically, one thing for me, like The End, it starts off with this sort of sound effects, but it has this very like grand musical feeling to it. In fact, like I don't know if you noticed this, there's especially like as the song starts off and then you break into this large musical interlude sort of thing, and it's very reminiscent of the Pink Floyd song. It's from the album The Wall. It's the In the Flesh, like as a question mark. And like now that I mention it, if you go back and listen to In the Flesh and you listen to The End, especially that like musical part, it is there is a similarity there. And I only came across this later, because initially when I heard it I was like, okay, great, and then I was like reading something or talking to someone and they mentioned it, and then I looked at it and I was like comparing, and I was like, oh yeah, it does. And they have said like Pink Floyd was one of the inspirations behind like musically behind this album, some of the things that they've done in the album. But yeah, what were your sort of impressions of The End?
Again, I didn't know the songs that I had heard before were from this album itself, and I didn't know what sort of firstly I didn't know the songs were in this album, then I didn't know what zone is this album, because I didn't remember any of it. Like I've heard My Chemical Romance like here and there, but then it started off with the beeping, then with the strumming, and it sounded like it's going to it's going through a phase or phases of songs, because in The End itself it's I think first it's just vocals, like a solo guitar thing, and then they jump into their punk music sort of, and I think I mean musically I won't be able to define it much because I'm not very well versed with this punk rock. However, what's the genre for this? For My Chemical Romance?
I mean, it's rock. It's like scream music, rock, emo music, you could call it.
Music, yeah.
Yeah, it's very much a combination. But I would say this album, The Black Parade, kind of stands out a bit more because it's not just that. I think there's songs that go beyond, and I think we'll talk about it when we get to it. But also, The End is a good example where it is a sort of a combination of different genres. In a sense, they've kind of made it their own. Taken what would be like classically more like, screamo, I think it's called, and and really just made it their own type of flavor.
I mean, for the end, it was like, again, I jumped into the lyrics because the music it's overwhelming for me. Let's just put it
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
the lyrics is just like it's defining a funeral procession, the steps of a funeral procession.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, and
right,
well,
yeah.
in a way, I feel like it's almost there's that, but there's also like an introduction to the album because like you have that part going on, and then it's like the lyrics are like now come all to this tragic affair, wipe off that makeup, what's in it, despair. So
Yeah.
throw on the black dress, mix in the lot, right? But it's like welcoming you to like come join us in this, but you got to put on all that, like you got to put on that black dress. They're like welcoming you to join this journey of an album, but they're also asking you to do it in their way, and it's like you've got front row seats to the penitence ball. So like it's very much an introduction, apart from
Yeah.
just being the song that it is. But it's like
And then-
welcome to my despair, welcome to my misery. Now
And then
have another, have a good 52 minutes or whatever. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, da-na-na-na. That's the music I'm talking about, which is like a little bit like In the Flesh by Pink Floyd.
Okay.
You gotta listen it side by side and you'll see what I mean.
Okay.
There's definitely
Will
a
do.
similarity there. Yeah, but I think a great way to like introduce it, and I think at some level, like if you don't know that it's sort of like a rock opera, that's fine. But also, I think if you're aware of the theatricalness of all of this,
Mhm.
there's like kind of a fun to be had with all the tracks, even though they're so dark, because it's almost like they're putting on a play.
I mean,
Right, like a
that's what I
dark-
said, right?
Yeah.
It's theater mixed with
Yeah.
with music. Yeah,
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
band's theater. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've
There is that
noted
energy
this
to it.
this one where he says it's, well, in a way it's sort of self-loathing. You might wake up and notice you're someone you're not.
Yeah.
If you look in the
yeah.
mirror and don't like what you see, you can find out firsthand what it's like to be me. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of, I mean, that he's saying that I'm going through great pain, probably.
Yeah.
But if you just focus on the line, which is, you might wake up and notice you're someone you're not. It's, if you think of it philosophically, I mean, I really steered into that zone because,
Yeah.
I mean, we go deep into it later on as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this, like, it's a part of a lot of good songs that we've heard of, which talk about, you losing yourself to be someone you're not,
Yeah.
or you lose yourself. You put on a mask to for glory or for any other thing, but
Yeah, you're
This-
living two lives in a sense, right? There's like a pretend
you lose
life
yourself.
almost.
I mean,
Yeah.
your true self you lose
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a few acknowledgements, probably.
Yeah, or
Something
like
like
fitting in or whatever
Yeah.
that reason is. And no, that's very true, and I think that's a lot of the audience. The way they connect to some of this music is through that. At least even for me at that point, right? It was through that feeling of not fitting in a certain sense. And you find like here are these guys like inviting you to join them on the same journey that you're going through in a weird sense, which is I think what the end achieves. But
And
it's just
with him serving his resignation,
yeah. Yeah.
isn't that like little? It's also going towards a little suicidal. I mean, maybe I'm just overthinking this, but because he
Yeah.
says it quite blatantly that
Yeah.
I'm serving my registration.
Well, the words
sorry,
are there, right?
resignation.
Like if you are someone who's gone through that, you will pick up on that. For example,
Yeah.
right?
That-
The words,
that
all
true.
like all these little elements are there. And I'm just gonna say, like, the way to start the album of a track called "The End" is just because it is a bit about death and the afterlife and this and that. So it's think it's quite a unique way to start it off.
Yeah. So just bringing in a bit of Urdu poetry into this. It's
Yeah.
so I just have these 4 lines written with me, but so Urdu poetry. So there's a section called Sher, and there's a section called Ghazals, and so in a large perspective, Ghazals are a combination of shairs put together to form a story of an entire, and it sort of multiplies the meaning of that one shair, which is like a 2-line or 3-line sort of thing, poetry. And here as well, if you look at it, so since we just spoke about this, like you might wake up and notice you're someone you're not, is one shair. And then if you look in the mirror and don't like what you see, you can find first. So that's like,
I
that's
see what you
another
mean.
shair.
Yeah.
So like, it's forming a ghazal in my head as well, being
very poetic, Razi. Yeah, very deep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
no,
yeah.
that's true. Yeah. So from this song, then we get to the second song, which is also a very interesting title, Dead, with an exclamation mark.
Dead.
Dead. But if you're listening to it without looking at like the track list, it just like seamlessly follows on from the first track, right? With that like machine, like the machine like flatlining, and then it just like carries on instantly into Dead, which makes sense because it flatlined. Well, the person flatlined in that song, and yeah, I mean, this song is sort of lyrically sort of about like regrets, insecurities, and I think like I said, alluding to that rock opera patient scenario, it's like you're on your deathbed in a sense, but you have like these regrets. No one really liked you. There's like lines around that. You never fell in love. It's like you haven't really lived the life, and now you're dying, so you don't get what the point of life was, and you're like sour about it. It's a very, very negative spin on things. But I think in general, that's what a lot of this album is. I mean,
the album is anyway telling a story of a patient, as it's been put. And I think as we go deeper into it, further down the track list, it talks about the philosophy of death, like sections of it, parts of it, phases of death, and the afterlife, the point of death, the reason for it, and what's happening to your loved ones after it. Like it sort of combines all of that. And so I have this another one line of this which is wouldn't it be great dead? I think it's like I think it's from the patient's perspective, right?
So there's a part of the song that he sings like the doctor, like as the doctor, like declaring that the patient's got like 2 weeks to live, and then you also have then the most of the song I think is from the patient's perspective, like you're the person receiving the news that you've got 2 weeks to live.
So I mean that switch is difficult to notice with at least for me it was. But
he does like a weird voice thing though when he's singing as a doctor, like there is like a slight change, but it's
that's how I could guess,
subtle,
but then I didn't know if that was the case. So
and it's got an like excellent guitar solo towards the end,
and so again it from the patient's perspective, being dead is great. So it's again a little suicidal that way. If I'm
no,
following
definitely.
the theme. Yeah.
It's like the life that the person lived wasn't really, and I think we'll get more to it with some of the tracks later on. But it was kind of empty, and so in a weird way, they have so many regrets and things. They're almost like welcoming this bad news that they've got 2 weeks to live. I think there's a little bit of that in that with all the regrets and everything, right?
True.
Right. And then from Dead, the next track we get to is "This Is How I Disappear."
Like revisiting memories, right?
A little bit. Firstly, I want to just point out that intro music sound is it feels very like ritualistic. Like there's some sort of like ritual going on to like raise the dead type sort of thing, which I feel like it ties into what you were saying, like revisiting as a ghost almost, like reaching out from the afterlife.
Or maybe revisiting memories where you won't be, because that's how I disappear.
Yeah.
Right?
That is true. Yeah. Without you is how I disappear. Yeah. A little heartbreaking. But it just seems like there's, again, on that deathbed, there's a regret to do with relationships and love and all of that. Right, and I think musically as well, there's quite a lot happening with like the guitars and the drumming. Some of the songs are quite unique musically, but thematically they just seem to be very much about this obsession with death almost.
Yeah.
Right, but in a very negative way as well, not in like a positive way. But it's very much like the life I lived sucked, death sucks, everything sucks. But they really like hone in on it lyrically, thematically.
I guess that's the genre, because I'm all about I'm all about death.
Hey.
Well, I'm pro death, but
pro death. Okay.
I mean, in a
yeah. Mm-hmm.
In a different poetic manner, because again, so this genre would be punk rock, but I'm talking about
more emo, but yeah,
emo rock. I mean, it's
yeah,
that. So
screamo, yeah.
I mean, I'm just a little poetic about it. Like it making it beautiful, making it sound something that you would accept probably. But
yeah, no,
yeah,
this album
really,
is very much. It's very straight, harsh. Like it's to the not the nice parts. Like it's very much. It's not like sugar wrapping it or something. Like sugar coating it. It's very much just like everything sucks. Sort of.
Yeah.
Especially around this and the journey that this patient's on. But I think there's a track later on. We'll get to it when we get to it. But it's just, I think for me it brings things a little full circle in terms of why some of the songs or the perspective is like this. But yeah, we'll get to it. So yeah, the next track that we get to is The Sharpest Lives. So in that name, I think lives is used like knives, like sharp knives. But here, like the analogy sort of being like the sharper the life, like the more edgy it is, like you've lived it to the extreme sort of. And it kind of talks about that, like this song specifically, it's like there's elements of like a toxic sort of relationship, but it's very much like that you've done everything to the extreme in a negative way again.
And also talking about the patient coming face to face with death for the first time, I think, right? And and then losing someone close, or which could be a friend or a lover or family, anyone, and
there's like these whispers in this song, like that they almost like whisper in your ear. If you're listening from the headphones, I think it's like really effective. Like it really just puts you in that zone with this song, I think.
So this song I had heard before. This is one of the songs I had heard before.
Interesting, yeah, because The Sharpest Lives, I don't know if that was like one of the big songs off this album, but interesting that this is one of the ones you've heard before.
Yeah, I mean, the tune is what I could catch on to. That
Yeah.
I've heard
Yeah.
this before. So, yeah.
Nice. And then from the Sharpest Lives, I think for me at least, we get to like the star of the show. Welcome to the Black Parade. So this is this is like the song, the track that really got me into My Chemical Romance. It's probably like my favorite track of the album. I have a couple that I really like, and I think when I first heard this, it was quite popular at the time it came out, and the music video, the MTV those days, it was all over MTV. But I don't know, I just really feel connected to this song, and it's like this imagery that they draw of like this black parade that he's attending as a boy, and then there's like this message about loss and like carrying on, and like so Gerard, he said that like in his like philosophy, if you like, he believes that like when people die, they're greeted by their fondest memories. And so like in this case, in this like rock opera, the patient's fondest memory is him, like his father taking him to this parade. So that's what he's seeing, like, when I was a young boy. And he sings that part, right? But then there's also an element of it which is just about like, carry on, like we carry on sort of the legacy and the memory. So like it's one of the things where rare things in this album where there is a more of a positive spin to it, in the sense that even after death, like we carry on the legacy, their memory, and part of it is about like dealing with that loss. So I feel like thematically it's quite rich, but then also musically it's like two different songs, like completely different. That intro outro with like the marching beating, and then that rock, which is a majority of the song, when it like breaks into that electric guitar and everything. I don't know, for me it just really captures me, and puts me in the middle of the music. One of those like rare tracks.
I mean, it carries a lot of messages of losing someone close, a parent in this case, specifically a father in this case, and mourning, and how you feel that the world might end because someone died, but it won't. Like, it's got that motivational speech, it's got the element of loss,
very interesting
element
way
of
to look at
mourning,
it,
and it's just a mix of all of it together. And as you mentioned, how the Gerard looks at when you're dying or when you're gonna die, it's the fondest memories you revisit. So he's sort of revisiting this time with his father.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the music video. It's very interesting. You got the patient dying, and then like literally the Black Parade comes to take him. It's like death visits him to take him, but it takes the form of the Black Parade, which is like My Chemical Romance performing on, and this Black Parade coming to take him. It's an interesting music video. It's definitely of its time. It's got that 2000s punk vibe to it, where everything is like shot on a set with like these overly like death imagery and everything,
plan.
Right? Yeah, a little bit, right? Yeah. So, but I mean, the sound and everything, the music, it just feels so iconic in this song to me. Like, I've always felt musically with the piano intro, then you got like the marching band, then you got that rock and like that rock, punk rock music, emo, whatever you want to call it, and then it switches back. So musically, I don't know, it's always quite captivated me that it's like a song that's more than just a song. It's a performance.
It is.
Right.
I mean, so I had heard Welcome to the Black Parade also. This is the one I had heard many times before. I think it was already it was already on my library, so it's probably because of you. And it did have a different feeling from the rest of the songs. The rest of the songs just feel like an addition to a story, while this is the crunch probably.
Yeah, for me, this is like the core. There's like a couple others that just like, for me, elevate the album a little bit as well. But yeah, Welcome to the Black Parade for me is like what's ground, like the anchor
Mm-hmm.
of the album. And I think it's aptly named, right? Welcome to the Black Parade, and the album is called The Black Parade.
Yeah.
So it's like the anchor of that album, in a certain sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to I Don't Love You. So I guess this song again is sort of more about like a dysfunctional relationship. I don't know if you've seen the music video. It's a very interesting sort of music video about like, I mean, I think the music video, it captures what I feel like part of the sort of the song is about,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of like the singer doesn't really feel like he deserves the partner that he has. He's kind of like, he knows she's gonna leave in a sense, but like there's that element of like he knows that she's gonna leave him, and he's like, when you go, would you even turn and say I don't love you like I did yesterday? To me, it's very much, there's like that
Would you have the guts
insecurity
to say?
and yeah. And there's very much that insecurity because of like, as we covered previously, like the regrets and all of this that this patient has, going back to the rock opera part, storyline. It's sort of a strange way of just being like, he's got, I mean, that's why, like, when you think about it as a rock opera, I feel like the order of the songs don't necessarily make sense. Because, like, if we're saying Welcome to the Black Parade is him dying and him leaving, this is like some sort of afterlife regret, I suppose. But it mainly just kind of feels like a breakup song. Right?
I mean, the title gives it away for a breakup song. But there's a part in the song which he sings in a different voice, which is so fix your eyes fix your eyes and get up, better get up while you can. I think I mean it's a beautifully done part. I don't want to comment on whether the voice is beautiful or not, but it's beautifully done because it's got pain in it, and that sort of, I mean, it also defines the genre, but it also it gives a sudden different feeling to this flow of music that you're listening to.
Yeah. No, agreed. So then from I Don't Love You, we come to House of Wolves. And I guess this song it's a fast-paced sort of melody that it's got, but it's really just about penance. I think it's sort of like you're dead and you're going to hell, right? Like you're it's like contemplating heaven, or you're gonna burn in hell.
I think it's like the patient is talking to a priest.
Almost, right? Yeah, it does feel like that. Yeah,
a priest is giving him blessings while he's like mocking, death, and telling the priest like, I'm going to hell anyway. What are you going to do?
Essentially, right? Yeah. There's this part where I really like. It's like SINISIN. It's like sin, I sin, right? But it's like SIN, but it fits so well, like almost,
That, yes.
I can't remember what it's called in English when you have the letters going forward and then backwards. SINIS. But it just goes SINISIN. There's quite a lot of interesting musical stuff. Like there's like this cool guitar solo, when he's like, I'm a bad man, and there's like this guitar melody happening in the background. But it is, again, one of the more like negative, like penance and regret, and like, you've done wrong, and you're like, you're going to pay for it, and you're going in with that mindset. There's no like, you're not even thinking about like that anyone can forgive you or that you can rise above this. You've just kind of accepted it. You have accepted your demons.
True.
And then we get to Cancer. I think it's like a slight U-turn musically. I think with like going from like a fast-paced sort of song to like that slow piano intro it has. It's sort of more of like a solemn song with like the music and everything. But I've got this quote, I think it's from Gerard, and it's like, this isn't a poetic track. It's a very direct, very brutal, but that's the way the disease is. You know, like it's talking about cancer. It's like, it's very direct, and he's, you know, he says like obviously cancer is used as a metaphor as well in this song, but very much the song is just, I mean, it's titled Cancer, and I think it's just, it just seems like a very dark, solemn song again. But musically it's more,
this is one of the songs where, I mean, as you said, it takes a swing musically. It also, I think this is the first song where he fears death.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's sad to leave everyone behind, and he's angry at being hopeless, like weak and hopeless, probably. So that way
it's almost like the different emotions or the conflicted feelings that the patient might be having as he's going through this process of death, in the sense of like, you know, there's regret, there's emptiness, and then there's fear, and then there's hatred and anger, and there's like all these. And I think with this one it's a bit more solemn, and like, you know, musically as well, it's not aggressive. It's like you're accepting defeat in the face of something else, like,
but you're also angry musically. You're also angry at accepting defeat because you have to.
Yeah, exactly. But I do feel like you see a bit more like musical variety as well, I think, with Cancer.
It's the last stage.
The other ones. Yeah.
It's the last stage, so the last stage of cancer. I don't know.
Yeah. Stage 4. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it is very dark. I think, you know, Gerard, he said like they wanted to try and write almost like the darkest song ever in a sense.
Is this
and I
it?
think they did sort of achieve that. Yeah. Well, it's titled it Cancer for one thing, so.
Well, it's bad for zodiac signs like mine. So,
I didn't even think of that. Yeah. And then we get to Mama, and I think this is again one of the more outstanding songs. You know, it starts off with like those war sounds, and it's like, I think lyrically it's almost like a soldier like writing a letter to his mom about like the things he's ashamed that he's done, and at the same time he knows that his mother's like disowned him. So it is that negative, like, you know, Mama, we're all gonna die.
So
but there's
so that, I mean, that part that he's singing, Mama, we're gonna die, and he sings it on repeat, and that's like, he's just happy to say it, but
it's like a sarcastic happiness, or like it's a weird, he's happy but he's not happy, but he's like lost it.
The music has got a Spanish tune to it, which makes it.
Well, I think it's like, you know, it's almost like classical, like folk. I would say like classical, like folk Eastern European music. Yeah. You know, like that. Like that beginning, at least in the beginning, before it like transitions into like this complete rock, which but, again, I just feel like they're so good at that. Yeah.
Also, when you mentioned that, you know, this soldier writing to his mother, and this is again, I see a reference to The Wall, mother in The Wall, and
that is a good point.
And Roger Waters, there he actually sings like, "Mother, are they going to drop the bomb?"
Hey, and, that is a good point. There could be some inspiration there. Yeah.
I mean, it's Mama and that's Mother, and they're both talking about how they're gonna die at war. Yeah. Or, you know, that they are gonna die.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that is what it is. And I think, you know, like musically, there's a few things like this track. I think it just stands out so much to me because, like, I just think they've just overdone it in a crazy way. Like, so you start off with like this, you know, you could say like this folk type Eastern European music. And then at like, I've written it down, it's like at the 2-minute 39-second mark, then you've got this like folk and rock combined. Um, and then there's another transition at like 2 minute 55 seconds, which I think again it just like gets you by surprise, and it's like a very interesting like musical interlude of sorts. And I don't know if you've noticed the beat and the rhythm, they change throughout the song. So like it starts off with a simple like, you know, like a 1 2 1 2, and then it like transitions into that rock like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and it ends at like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Like I don't know what the beats are called, but it's just like it's got, you know, it transitions quite a bit. In you know, the rhythm and the beat. I think it's at the 3 minute and 33 second mark where it transitions into that like 3 beat tone. So I just think like musically they've just gone completely crazy. They were just like, it's in a weird way, it's like them having fun with the music and the lyrics while it's got that sarcastic tone to it, and it's still very dark. But they're also having a lot of fun like musically.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, with the Spanish tune that I said, that's the part which, I mean, they're having fun telling their mother that they're gonna die.
Yeah, it does have. I think it's this song that has it's got a guest singer in it. I can't remember her name, but she sings a couple of the lines in there. But yeah, I just think it's just so well done. Again, it's just like they could have just done another sort of rock song, but it's just them just trying to like just push the boundaries of that genre that they're sort of bending, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, from Mama follows on to Sleep, and I think thematically this sort of follows. I think Mama, like it starts with that creepy voiceover, like talking about night terrors, and I think there's like this aspect, you know, especially starting off with like that sound effect. But interestingly, this is one of the songs. I mean, Gerard said it's based on like when they were living in that haunted house. He was having these nightmares every night, and he would wake up from these nightmares, and that has heavily influenced this song, Sleep. Which is why
talking about the haunted house. So what goes with it is sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
So
True.
like, you know, the horrors of sleep paralysis, and like a comparison of real
I'm well
life
familiar.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
that exactly that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just a comparison of, you know, the real life and the terrifying feeling. And because sleep paralysis, as you mentioned, I mean, you can define it better, but it just, you have no idea what to do. Like, you literally are just
imagine being in that haunted house, like that infamous
Exactly.
haunted house, and you're just like, I mean, and I think there's, you know, I think again the song does sway towards, it's not just like, oh, I'm having these nightmares or whatever, but it sways towards that feeling of like the singer, or like the patient, I guess, this character feeling like unredeemable, in a sense, and like again in a sense, in a weird way, welcoming these nightmares, because he just feels so like again guilty in a sense, but not guilty that he's done wrong, but owning up to it and just being like, it's bad and I welcome it, sort of.
Yeah, true.
Right. And then from Sleep we get to Teenagers. Now, when this album came out, I think Teenagers might have been a bigger hit than Welcome to the Black Parade, in terms of what I remember people listening to and being on the radio and MTV. Although Welcome to the Black Parade, I love it. I think Teenagers resonated really well, at least like with people my age at the time. And you know, Gerard has said like I think he was on like a subway in New York or something, and he saw all these teenagers sitting, and he kind of, at that point, when you realize like crap, I'm getting old, and he felt like he's like the parent figure in this like whole, you know, cart of train, like teenagers being, and he kind of felt like he's becoming part of the problem, like that older person telling kids like, don't do this, do that, you know, which sort of inspired this piece that's, I think, partly about almost like teenage violence, but partly it's because the pressure that teenagers feel of like conforming to social norms that like
In the modern
drives out
society,
these.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not saying like teenagers are bad, but it's saying like the society is forcing all of this onto teenagers.
It's
and
it's how the society is acting on the teenagers rather than the other way around.
And causing them, right? And it's like there's like they either rebel through like opposing the social norms, like darken your clothes, or pull a violent pose, because it's like you either do it through like, you know, becoming, again referring to, I guess, their sort of, you could say, following of that emo gothic sort of you know, dark clothes and all of that, or people turn towards violence. So it's one or the other, right? Either you become the bully or you just become a My Chemical Romance fan.
Well, you tell me.
And I was one. So, and I am one. So, I, you know, better than a bully. But there is that parallel there, right? I feel, and it's just, I think, and the tune and everything is just great. You know, I love this song. It's everything is just, for me, this works pretty well. But I think there is that message there.
It's got an understanding of the teenage psyche.
Yeah.
Right?
Very
Like,
well.
that people telling them they can and they can't do things, but that's when they want to. I mean, why can't I do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's that rebel that needs to be sort of treated right.
Yeah.
That's
Agreed.
I think what the song
It is about like society is forcing this in a sense for them to act like this.
Yeah.
Like that's what he mentioned, right? Like he feels like he's becoming part of the problem now that he's older.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just great. It's a great track. And then from teenagers, we get to another one of my favorites, Disenchanted. And this starts off with like that guitar tune. I just love this track. It's got this like, it's, you know, it's like watching like the singer or the character, however we're gonna put it, it's like watching their life flash in front of them in a sense, right? But it's like, and I think this is the track for me that puts other songs in this album in context, because Disenchanted, the way that they use the word disenchanted in that concept, it's like the opposite of nostalgia. Like when you're nostalgic about your past, you're remembering things that you liked, and you're remembering like, oh, that was so fun, or my high school days, or my, you know, whatever it was. But in this song, the character or the singer, you know, they're just disenchanted from their life. Like they feel like they didn't do anything in their life. It was a waste. It was empty.
Good.
And I think that is...
I've got like four feelings that I've written. It's sadness, pain, nostalgia, and acknowledgement.
Very much on point of what I'm trying to say, right?
So, yeah.
And I think it puts the other tracks in context, because I think it goes back to like, why is that person so negative, or that character, the patient, or whoever, right? It is because they don't feel like they've lived the life they were supposed to live, or people let them believe that they would live. They've lived this life they don't feel connected to, and all they have is regrets and anger and hatred. They don't have any positive thing. It's not like, you know, they're dying and they're thinking like, okay, at least I lived a full life or something. It's the opposite. It's that hollow shell of a feeling they're getting. And the music, I don't know, I just love the music and the melody and everything. It's different from the rest of the tracks, but I don't know, it just very much captures you musically.
Well put. That's well put. Yeah.
Yeah, and the name as well. Great title.
Well, the name
yeah,
rather means the opposite of what you're saying, but
well, no, in the sense of like what the song is about, right? Being disenchanted from life, being like separated. Like, you know, it goes back to, you know, in the first track, like you wake up and you don't recognize yourself in the mirror. It's what this is, right? You've kind of separated from what you think your life would have been or should be.
True.
And I think that's why I feel like this song, sort of, for me at least, in a lot of ways like puts all these other songs into this context of like this is why the patient feels like that.
True.
If you want to go with that rock opera thing, right?
True.
And then we get to what was originally, I suppose, like the last track of the album, Famous Last Words. This is again one of the standout songs for me. I love this song, and I think this was another one of the big songs of the album. Might have been one of the singles that was just playing everywhere. And it's weird because one of the interviews I was reading about, if you think about that analogy of the patient and that rock opera, what Gerard said was like, at first I thought the patient died, but the more I think about it, the more I think he's not dead, and maybe this is all in his head, or maybe he can fight. Now I think he has a choice to live. And it goes back to like all these phases that the patient went through on his deathbed. But yeah, I think, you know, it's the song itself, if you just take it by itself, it's one of the songs off the album that I feel like, again, it's like strangely inspirational, because it feels like it's about carrying on and living even after losing someone. Now this could be losing someone as in like they pass away, or it could be a breakup even, in certain sense. But I just, it feels like that a sequel to, firstly, to the Welcome to the Black Parade, like Carry On. But I don't know, it really does feel like inspiration in the sense that you're not afraid. Like,
yeah,
we went over all of this negative stuff. If you think about it from the rock opera, the patient's perspective, all of these negative feelings that he's going to die, he's going to go in hell.
He's not afraid anymore.
To pay for. But now he's like, he wants to live. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's not afraid to live anymore. He wants to fight for it. He's found that strength in a weird sense.
See you lying next to me as he sings it.
See you lying next to me. I love that part. Words I thought I'd never see. It's just, again, musically, I think it's very unique because it goes from that rock and it's got all these different layers to it. But yeah, it's one of my favorites, again, off the album.
Which one isn't? I mean, you've literally... Well, never mind. Yeah. No, I think some of them would really just stand out to me. But I have heard this album a lot of times. And, you know, this song, the guitar... Oh, yeah. The guitar riff, it's just... When I got my first electric guitar, that was like one of the first things I got to playing. Because I was just like... I always had it in my head. I really want to play that little riff that's there. Yeah, epic. Feels epic. And, you know, funnily enough, I've heard this album a lot of times back to back, but I'd actually never heard the next track, the hidden track, Blood. And this was my first time. Probably. Yeah, this was the first time I'd heard it, because even then I'd missed it the couple of times I was hearing this album, because the song starts at the 1:30 mark, even in the track. Because I'm guessing originally on the disc, on the CD and stuff, there was probably just like a 1:30 gap, and then the track started. So when they put the track, when they've digitized it, there's still that 1:30 gap. Yeah.
And it's quite a short little song. It reminds me of Mama a little bit. Like they've got that funky like piano tune. But yeah, I think it just feels like, you know, it's like he's like, what, give them blood. It's, you know, and it's never enough. Give them blood. But it's very much, it feels a little bit just like about like being a celebrity or something, and like fans or paparazzis, or like fame, you know, yeah. People always wanting fame. More. Yeah. But at the same time, if you listen to the song, it just sounds like they're having a bunch of fun. Like they're just being sarcastic.
Yeah, I mean, well, they use
the like, singing whatever
bloodsuckers for fans, and
yeah.
And even though they don't,
in a weird sarcastic way, I feel like they're like happy, because in the song, right, he's very much happy to give his blood away, but it's like a sarcastic way, right? You know, like with endearment that he's calling them bloodsuckers.
But in the end, no matter what he does, I mean, that's how it ends. Like in the end, it doesn't matter what he does. It'll never be enough.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, and it still sticks with that analogy with the patient and everything, right? The doctors and nurses, they adore me, even though I can't remember what the exact words are, but it's like, and again, you can take that fan analogy, like the fans still love me. but it still sticks within that sort of setting, that hospital setting. And it can be taken in that way as well. Like when you're in a hospital and people are taking care of you, it's like they love me, but why? Like I'm not in a good state here.
And an awful fuck is
Yeah.
what he says.
Yeah, yeah. That's the term. But yeah, I think I guess summing up overall, I've heard a few of their albums, but for me, like the Black Parade stands out particularly because of some of these tracks. Right, Welcome to the Black Parade, Mama, Teenagers, Disenchanted, Famous Last Words. I think they just for me like pushed that boundary a little bit because there was a lot of bands in this space at the time. But I feel like My Chemical Romance really made this sort of genre their own, and really pushed it in this album. And you can see like they've given their everything, like musically. They're like, it's got all of their energy. And they were in a bloody haunted house for a while writing and working on some of these tracks. So there's a lot to it. But what was your sort of overall impression? Like, especially this not really being your sort of go-to type music, generally speaking.
My first impression, you're asking, or just an overall?
Just in general, like, or both, like overall, what?
Yeah, overall, it was a well, I would say poetically, it's again eye-opening for me because that's a perspective that we can look at. I mean, it's like I will quote like Jim Morrison,
Hey.
or I will quote Jim Morrison, who quoted Aldous Huxley, who, well, it's also mentioned by William Blake. It's a story, but it says, when the doors of perception are cleansed, man will see as things are infinite. So it's the same way. It's like listening to the lyrics, reading the kind of poetry, and the way they recited their poetry. It was, that there is that part of life which exists, and this is it, I guess. Because they're not sad about dying, they're not sad about losing someone, they're in pain, they're going through the phase. Like, you are sort of seeing a POV, point of view of the patient over here. And in that song, you also actually are listening to the patient. So that kind of way, I mean, it was something very new. It was just a very new experience. Because in comparison, 30 Seconds to Mars also take poetry to a next step, but these guys sort of took death, an interesting subject, to a perspective,
the extreme.
which is, I mean, it's sure there's an afterlife, there's pain in death, or the pain ends with death, or however you want to take it. But then there are phases to death, is how I took it. Like,
it is, I think that's very true.
Interesting.
Yeah. And not always, something easy to look at, in a sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Not something you can easily accept.
No.
Probably, yeah.
Well, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think, it's when I first heard Welcome to the Black Parade, it really sort of influenced me, and I got into all of this music. I think this album, again, for me, stands out for more than one reason. But very, very much just about death and stages of death, and theatrical at the same time. I've never seen them. I wish I had a chance to actually see them live, like in person, performing as the Black Parade. But I guess, that ship has sailed. So thank you for joining us today, guys, and we will see you again in the next one. And remember, the Black Parade is dead. Fight Club.
Right. I'm forgetting his name. He sort of, has lost himself, and then he finds Brad Pitt, and then they start this fight club, and then he realizes there isn't a Brad Pitt, it's him, and he starts.
Look,
off
dude,
from
I'm sure you're making sense, but can I tell you something? I haven't seen Fight Club.
Oh shit! Oh, cancel, cancel, cancel the show. I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah. No, I haven't seen Fight Club. I'm sure what you're saying is correct. Is spot on.
Okay, so I'll cut it out.